auctions and cattle drives. You think of saloons and bar fights.
Sure, old movies like to glorify the cowboy persona, but a cowboy is really just a herder who tends cattle. When the Spaniards got to Mexico, they taught the locals their cowboy vaquero ways. And when the U.S. took over the territory now known as Texas, American cowboys were heavily influenced by the vaqueros, from their lariats to their leather duds. And many of the vaqueros stayed in the U.S. to work for the Texas cattlemen.
Apparently 1 in every 3 cowboys was either Mexican or black. So even from that time, we were always a sort of mixed society.
Cowboys were certainly an ethnic mix, but they all shared a sense of teamwork while driving the cattle from Texas to the railroads, supplying beef to the east. Sometimes they traveled 25 miles in a day, so those cowboys needed sustenance to make the long haul. We found a real cowboy, Tom Perini, at Perini Ranch in Buffalo Gap, Texas, to tell us all about the cowboy lifestyle, especially the grub.
And this is a small place. We have 640 acres, but in this part of Texas, that's considered small. So I can keep some longhorns out here, the cattle that actually started the Texas cattle industry as we know it today. In 1983, I opened Perini Ranch Steakhouse here on the ranch. I have people that'll come up to me and say, "Chef," and I said, "No, I'm not a chef, I'm a chuck wagon cook." And the difference is, a chef has had real training. My training has been, if I put too much salt in the beans, the cowboys tell me so.
So what is real cowboy food?
Cowboys are beef and potato kind of guys, and they're not much on frilly food. Cowboys come here all the time to eat, and they like steak.
Specifically, chicken fried steak.
There is no chicken in chicken fried steak. It is beef that has a batter like fried chicken. We use ribeye because ribeye has a great flavor. I'm actually gonna drench this in egg wash that's made with eggs and buttermilk. And I'm dredging it in the flour. Now this flour has salt and pepper in it. And that's all, but it's just regular flour. And then you put that into about a ½ inch of oil in a cast iron skillet. And you know, with a thin piece of meat, it does not take long at all to brown it. It sure smells good. This is Texas chicken fried steak, fixed the old-time way. It's a chuck wagon that's designed to feed 15 cowboys 2 meals a day. Charles Goodnight is credited with inventing the first chuck wagon. He took a military wagon and he built a box on the back of it. And the box is what's called a chuck box. Chuck was an old English word for food. In the 1866 time period, there was no refrigeration. So everything that they carried on the wagon had to be stable. You know, we think of breakfast as bacon and eggs. That's not how it was. There was probably pinto beans with a little salt pork in it and biscuits and coffee. And the meal for the evening would probably be pinto beans, a little salt pork, and biscuits and coffee. For something sweet, they'd put a little molasses on the biscuit, and that was the treat.
Of course, biscuits are still a treat for every Bronco buster, and those are made in a Dutch oven by Tom's fellow cooking cowboy, Grady Spears.
Cowboys have used Dutch ovens forever. I mean, since they've been cooking off the chuck wagons, they're just incredibly great, versatile tools to cook with. Not only do they hold heat, but you can do anything in them. Biscuits were a staple of chuck wagon cooking. If you think about it, they always had a milk cow. You know, you had flour, some baking powder. So everything was there. And they go with anything. Who doesn't like a good biscuit? We make the biscuits by using flour and baking powder and cheddar cheese and salt and pepper and butter and buttermilk and mix all that together. Roll it out on a floured surface. Cut out the biscuits. Put them in a greased Dutch oven. The Dutch oven's now gonna go on the coals. I'm gonna take coals on top of the Dutch oven. Now we're gonna let them bake. About 15 minutes. Pull the lid and serve them. I think biscuits are one of those comfort foods that'll never go away. They go with breakfast, they go with lunch, they go with dinner, they go with beans, they go with steak, they go with chicken, they go with anything.
Well, in the late 1800s, cattle trails started to disappear as homesteaders claimed more and more land, sealing it off with barbed wire. The 20th century brought more trains and trucks. Before long, the cattle drive was a thing of the past. But you can still work as a cowboy today on a ranch like Perini's, if you're lucky.